Hey everybody, before I get started, I just want to mention a couple of ways that you can engage with me on a more personal level. I have a few avenues set up and I keep focusing on one, and I figured why don't I make a short little video talking about all of them real quick before we get into these episodes. So first thing, Patreon. There's a link in the episode description, in every episode description to the Patreon, as well as a video on the feed called Major Announcement that has all the details of what each tier offers and how much they cost. I implore you to check that out. I offer a lot of cool shit for my patrons. Second thing, the Discord channel. There's also a Discord link in the episode description and in every episode description. I have multiple channels set up there for each show that I'm covering, and it's a great way to just engage with me. I have a channel set up for MMA talk as well. I'm a big MMA fan, so if you're an MMA fan, you can check that out as well. There's a link to the Discord in the episode description. And then lastly, the Facebook and Twitter. Social media. Follow me on there. I post news on there. When I say news, I mean like, hey, I'm stopping covering this show. Hey, I'm starting covering this show. Let me know what you think about this. I do live watches of things on Facebook where like I'll check in and say I'm watching so-and-so show, and then I'll like live comment while I'm watching it, and that'll be cool if maybe you watch that show too and you want to watch along with me, or you're watching it later and you will see my thoughts, which are usually pretty entertaining because I'm usually pretty high when I'm writing them. So check out all those links in each episode description, and let's talk about this episode. Peace.
One mic, one mic. Yeah. All I need is one mic. One mic. Yeah. All I need is one mic. One mic. One mic.
Hey everybody, welcome back to One Mic, and today I'm here to talk about Season 2, Episode 4, the mid-season finale of Amazon's Invincible, entitled It's Been a While. So last week's closing line from Nolan is this week's episode title, as these are the first words that Nolan speaks to Mark upon seeing him. Was this or was this not the best episode of the season so far? Of course it was, and I know every last one of you watching this agrees. Why was it the best one? Because it had a central fucking focus. The majority of this episode focused on the Nolan/Mark plot, and the episode was better off for it. I also think this episode goes to show you how vital Nolan's character is to the show. He was missing in these first 3 episodes, and you felt it. You know, all this season, I've been saying that this show has felt like a jumbled mess, inserting subplot after subplot without advancing any of them, and making questionable decisions like choosing to focus on the romantic subplots while ignoring the interesting ones. And with the subplots by and large ignored this week, that allowed to show the focus on the Nolan-Mark plot, and we were all richly rewarded with it with a fun and exciting episode that upped the stakes, I think, and really set the table for what I'm certain is going to be an epic second half that I'm just not going to expect to get until probably like summer 2024. This episode opens right after the epic ending to Season 1, not to last week, but to Season 1. That Season 1 finale, by the way, still stands. It's one of the best episodes of TV from that year. Like, every time I think about the Season 1 finale of this show, I go, holy shit, that episode was fucking good. If you're new to my channel, and this is the first you're seeing of me, go watch my review for the finale of Season 1. I fucking loved it. Be prepared to be shocked by my appearance and the quality of the video when you watch it. But yeah, I loved that video. Sorry, I love that episode. Sorry, but after beating the ever-loving fuck out of Mark, Nolan just flies at the beginning of this episode for light years. And remember, light years is a measure of distance and not time, so I used it correctly. But this scene, it plays out to a cover of Leonard Cohen's Avalanche, done by Nick Cave and the Bad Seeds. And I know this because I thought, this song really works to convey Nolan's mindset in this scene. So I paused it and used Amazon's, little X-ray feature to see who made the song. I listened to the Leonard Cohen version, and it's actually a lot more haunting than the version that plays in the episode. Feels like it would have been a better choice to match Nolan's energy, but the version they chose kind of like it works better for the show. The show doesn't have like big like Leonard Cohen energy. So even though I felt like the Leonard Cohen version matched better with what Nolan was going through, I don't know. Leonard Cohen vibes. I don't know. It got a oil and water kind of feels like with this show. I don't know. So I feel like they made the right choice. It looked to me like Nolan was looking like he's probably gonna kill himself. I don't know, by flying into a black hole or whatever that was. But just as he was about to, a ship from the Thraxan bug people interrupt them. he saves them, and this is how he ends up being invited to be their ruler. And once Mark arrives, when we last saw that, we learn about what's happening with Nolan during this time, and it was quite a bit what we learned. For starters, the Thraxons only lived for a year. This short lifespan did not stop Nolan from marrying and impregnating one of them, though. I'm not going to say that's the most shocking thing I've ever heard on a TV show or anything like that, but if I was given infinite tries to guess what Nolan would have said to Mark, I'd have given up before I got to he fucked and married one of the bugs, and now he needs Mark to save his bug half family before the Viltrumites come. I never got there. I just given up. So I really enjoy, though, the realistic nature of the back and forth arguments between Mark and Nolan in this scene. Like, on one hand, everything Nolan is saying is absolutely fucking ludicrous. Like, don't call that thing my half-brother. Like, that's gonna sell me on saving it, Pops. Like, that's not gonna fly. Like, I just met this motherfucking aunt. Don't call it my half-brother. Like, that's gonna work on me. No. Mark has no emotional connection to that bug whatsoever. Don't call it his brother to appeal to his softer side. At the same time, we spent the whole season seeing Mark struggle with being perceived to be like his father. His immediate reaction is of course going to be fuck whatever Nolan is talking about. But then letting that bug planet die would make him just like his father. And I thought they did a really good job of conveying that conflict within Mark and explaining why that conflict would exist. So shout out to them on how they built up to this moment so far in this season. Now, here's something that I loved about this episode because I just feel like this doesn't happen enough. Miss Davis, a show that is aired on Peacock earlier this year, it did this well, but consistently and not just in one episode like this episode of this show did. But I loved how Nolan set the stakes of, I need you to help me defend these people against these people. I need you to help me defend these bugs against the Viltrumites. And Mark's like, how am I supposed to do that? And Nolan's like, I'll train you. Oh, wait, never mind. They're already here. like in that moment, I thought they were going to set up something that was going to pay off in a later fucking episode. And I'm like, man, I really look forward to Mark and Nolan fighting Viltrumites together. That should be sweet as fuck. Holy shit, it's happening right now. That was so cool. And it made the scene extra exciting because it felt like an unexpected treat in the episode. Like, I even had in my notes, what did I write? Damn, the Viltrumites are already here? Shit. And Nolan expected to have time to train. Like, that's what I wrote. And, like, I really like that unexpected. The problem is at your door right fucking now. And you and the audience weren't ready for it. Like, I thought that was so fucking cool, man. And then you got a show like Bass Reeves that is practically celebrating drawing shit out and taking a long time to get you to uninteresting places. And more shows should be like this, like Invincible. Set some shit up and then fucking do it. It's not complicated. Don't set it up and then drag it out for 5 episodes. Like, and if the reason for that is studios or like, or whoever the fuck is like, yo, I need 8 episodes of this show, stat. And you just like, I only got about 4 episodes worth of content, so let's just insert this other shit. Then they need to stop asking for a set amount of episodes and let the creators create. Because there's too many shows like Bass Reeves where shit gets dragged out for no fucking reason. I gotta see shit I don't care about in lieu of seeing the shit that matters. And there's not enough shows like this where they do cool shit like saying this is what's gonna happen and then have that shit happen. Like that. I don't think that's asking for a lot, but I digress. Moving on. Of course, the fight between Mark, Nolan, and the Viltrumites is absolutely fucking great. I'm not going to go over all the cool and creative violent moments that happen, but this is one of the things that this show is consistently great at. And I'm not even talking about like action scenes in general. I'm talking specifically about the violence. Like, it's always so imaginative and grotesque. I love it. It's great. I love the violence on this show. Like the way he push Mark's hands with his finger. I'm like, man, this show thinks everything. Ultimately, Nolan and Mark are violently defeated, and Nolan is taken back to Viltrum for execution, and Mark is sent to replace him on Earth and prepare us for a Viltrumite invasion. Nolan tells Mark to remember the good he's done, particularly his books, to read his books. And this is a good segue into talking about the Debbie subplot. So all season, I've been heaping praise on the Debbie subplot, but this week it just felt like more of the same to me. It felt like beating a dead horse. Like I know how Debbie feels now. I get it. Like I don't need like more examples of her being depressed. Like we've established it. I understand it, and that's why the Debbie subplot felt weak this week. However, we see that in an attempt to move past Nolan, she puts his novels amongst other things on the street for presumably for trash pickup. And this is interesting because Nolan impresses upon Mark the importance of reading his books. It makes it sound like there's some information in there that could be useful to help defeat the Viltrumites, and Debbie just left it out for the trash man. So that's interesting. We briefly touched on two other subplots in this episode as well. Donald has essentially learned that Nolan killed him, so he therefore must not be real. He at first thinks he's confirmed that he's human, and he's all relieved and shit when he draws blood from himself with a knife, and then he sees that he bent the knife. So, yeah. I'm interested in seeing where that's going quite a bit. The Maulers, they also finally settle on which is the original and which is the clone, only for the clone to poison the original, which, I don't know, that was just funny to me. Part of me feels like this is an ongoing gag that's going nowhere, but I think a larger part of me feels the exact opposite, and that this ongoing gag of who's the clone and who isn't is going to become a huge fucking deal somehow. Like, I'm of course hoping for it to be that one, the latter, but I don't know. It might just be a gag. I don't know. And if it is a gag, like how much? Where do you go now? Like, I mean, man, you kind of killed it by having them know which is which, and then be like, yeah, let's get confused again. But yeah, I thought this was a great episode. Great way to close out the first half of the season. Ultimately, I think the first half on its own, as a group of 4 episodes, is more of a failure than a success. But I mean, that last episode, man, so good. I also think that we spent 4 episodes setting up the second half of the season, which has resulted in the first half being a bit underwhelming, but it's probably going to result in the second half being absolutely fucking epic. So I'll see you guys right back here whenever that is. Fingers crossed that it's before summer 2024, and I'm basing that on nothing other than trying to keep my expectations low, but we'll cross our fingers for maybe, like, I don't know, February, March, but man, I don't know. I'm feeling like May, June. I don't know. I'm again basing that on nothing. But anyway, whatever that day is, I'll be right here to cover the second half of the season. Until then, peace.